The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Alina Rodriguez as she stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, Earth's most advanced deep space exploration vessel. The ship's quantum sensors hummed softly, scanning the endless void for signs of life or anything of interest. It had been 6 months since they'd left the solar system, venturing further than any human mission before. "Captain, we're picking up an anomalous signal," Lieutenant Kai Chen reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It's unlike anything we've seen before." Alina leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing as she studied the readout. Origin. Approximately 2.3 light-years away, in the Ophiuchus constellation, Kay replied. "The signal pattern is irregular, definitely not natural." A ripple of excitement passed through the bridge crew. They'd all been hoping for this moment, the possibility of first contact with an alien civilization. But hope and reality were two very different things. Could it be a glitch? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Dr. Amelia Okoy, the ship's xenolinguist and cultural expert, shook her head. "No, Captain. The pattern is too complex, too deliberate. This is a message." Alina took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "All right, people. This is what we've trained for." Kai set a course for the signal's origin. "Amelia, I want you working on decoding that message. The rest of you, prepare for first contact protocols. Let's make humanity proud." As the UES Horizon altered its course, none of the crew could have imagined the adventure that awaited them, or the crucial role they would play in the fate of an entire alien civilization. 3 days later, the Horizon dropped out of FTL, emerging in an unfamiliar star system. A blue-green planet, not unlike Earth, hung in the view screen. "Life signs?" Elena asked. "Affirmative," replied Science Officer Dr. Yuki Tanaka. "The planet is teeming with life, including clear signs of advanced civilization. But something's wrong." Elena frowned. "Elaborate." Yuki's fingers flew over her console. "I'm detecting widespread destruction on the surface. Cities in ruins, massive energy discharges consistent with weapons fire. Whatever happened here, it was recent." Before Alina could respond, Kay's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, we're being hailed." On screen, Elena ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a face that was both alien and eerily familiar. The being had silvery skin, large, almond-shaped eyes that shimmered with an inner light, and a crest of iridescent feathers where hair would be on a human. Despite the obvious differences, the expression of fear and desperation on the alien's face was unmistakable. "Unknown vessel," the alien spoke, its voice translated through the ship's advanced eye. "I am High Counselor Zara of the Zarian people. We beseech you for aid. Our world is under attack by a force beyond our ability to resist." Elena stepped forward, her voice steady and reassuring. "I am Captain Alina Rodriguez of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We received your distress signal and came to offer assistance. Can you tell us more about this attack?" Zara's feathers rippled, a sign of agitation. They came without warning, emerging from the darkness between stars. "We call them the Void Collective, a hive mind of cybernetic beings bent on assimilating all advanced life into their network. Our defenses were overwhelmed in a matter of days." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. The threat sounded disturbingly similar to scenarios they had only imagined in science fiction. "How can we help?" Elena asked, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Your arrival is unexpected," Zara admitted. "We had no idea other spacefaring races existed in this sector. But perhaps this is the miracle we've been praying for. Your technology, your tactics, they may be unknown to the Void Collective. Will you stand with us, Captain Rodriguez? Will you help us defend our home? Alina felt the eyes of her crew upon her. This was far beyond their original mission parameters, but the choice was clear. High Counselor Zara, on behalf of humanity, I pledge our support. We won't stand idly by while your people suffer. Together, we'll find a way to stop this Void Collective. Relief washed over Zara's alien features. Thank you, Captain. We welcome you to Nova Prime. May your arrival mark the turning of the tide in this war. As the transmission ended, Alina turned to her crew. All right, people. We've got work to do. Kai, establish a stable orbit and prepare for potential hostilities. Yuki, I want a full scan of the planet and any Void Collective ships you can detect. Amelia, you're with me. We're going to meet our new allies face to face. The capital city of Nova Prime was a stark contrast of breathtaking beauty and heartbreaking destruction. Towering spires of crystal and metal reached for the sky, their elegant forms marred by scorch marks and crumbling sections. As Alina and Amelia stepped out of the shuttle, escorted by a security team, they were met by a group of Zarians led by High Counselor Zara. Welcome to Nova Prime, Zara said, bowing slightly. I wish you could have seen our world in better times. Alina nodded solemnly. We're here to ensure that your people have a future High Counselor. Can you show us what we're up against? Zara led them to a holographic war room deep within a fortified bunker. A three-dimensional map of the Nova Prime system flickered to life, showing the positions of the remaining Zarian defenses and the looming threat of the Void Collective fleet. Their ships are unlike anything we've ever encountered, a Zarian military commander explained. They seem to be partly organic, able to regenerate damage and adapt to our weapons. And the beings themselves. He shuddered. They're a horrifying fusion of flesh and machine, driven by a single purpose: to absorb all sentient life into their collective. Amelia studied the holographic representations of the Void Collective ships, her analytical mind already at work. Their design is fascinating. It's almost as if... Wait. She turned to Zara. You said they came from the darkness between stars. Could they be extra-galactic in origin? Zara's feathers rippled in surprise. We hadn't considered that possibility. Our astronomical surveys have always been limited to our own galaxy. Alina's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. If they're from outside our galaxy, they may have encountered and assimilated countless civilizations already. No wonder your defenses were overwhelmed so quickly. The gravity of the situation settled over the room. This wasn't just about saving Nova Prime. The entire galaxy could be at stake. What can we do? Alina asked. The horizon is advanced, but we're just one ship. Zara's eyes glimmered with a newfound hope. Perhaps that's exactly what we need. Your technology, your tactics, they're completely unknown to the Void Collective. If we can combine our knowledge and resources, we might stand a chance. Alina nodded, a plan already forming in her mind. All right, we'll need to work fast. I propose a joint task force, the best minds from both our peoples working together to find a way to stop this threat. As the humans and Zarians began to collaborate, sharing knowledge and technologies, a spark of hope ignited in the war-torn capital of Nova Prime. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity, with the crew of the Horizon working tirelessly alongside their new alien allies. Dr. Yuki Tanaka and her Zarian counterparts made a breakthrough in analyzing the Void Collective's biomechanical physiology, identifying potential weaknesses. Lieutenant Kai-Chen worked with Zarian strategists to develop new battle tactics that might catch the enemy off guard. Aunt Amelia Okoye delved deep into Zarian history and culture, searching for any clues that might help them understand and defeat the Void Collective. But even as progress was made, the threat loomed ever closer. Long-range sensors detected a massive Void Collective fleet approaching Nova Prime, far larger than anything the Zarians had faced before. On the eve of the impending battle, Alina stood with Zara on a balcony overlooking the battered but defiant capital city. The twin moons of Nova Prime cast a soft, ethereal light over the landscape. "Do you think we have a chance?" Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alina gazed up at the stars, thinking of Earth, so far away and unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding here. "I have to believe we do," she replied. "Humanity has faced seemingly insurmountable odds before and prevailed. We're stubborn that way." She turned to Zara with a smile. "And from what I've seen, so are the Zarians." Zara's feathers rustled in what Alina had come to recognize as a sign of amusement. Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all. As they stood there, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the city. Kay's voice crackled over Alina's communicator. "Captain, the Void Collective fleet has entered the system. They'll be in weapons range within the hour." Alina's expression hardened with determination. "Understood. Sound battle stations. It's time to make our stand." As Alina and Zara rushed back to the war room, the first streaks of weapons fire lit up the night sky. The battle for Nova Prime, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, was about to begin. The war room of Nova Prime's central command center buzzed with frantic activity. Holograms flickered and danced, displaying the rapidly approaching Void Collective fleet. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood at the center of it all, her face a mask of determination as she coordinated with both her crew and the Zarian military. "Status report," she barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Lieutenant Kai Chen's fingers flew over his console. "The Void Collective fleet will enter weapons range in approximately 45 minutes. We're detecting over 200 ships of various sizes, far more than anything the Zarians have faced before." High Counselor Zara's feathers rippled with anxiety. "By the cosmic winds, there are so many of them. How can we possibly stand against such a force?" Alina placed a reassuring hand on Zara's shoulder. "With ingenuity, courage, and a hell of a lot of determination. We've faced impossible odds before, and we're not about to give up now." She turned to address the mixed group of humans and Zarians. "All right, people. This is what we've been preparing for. Let's run through our battle plan one last time." Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped forward, her holographic display showing a detailed schematic of a Void Collective ship. "Thanks to our combined research, we've identified a potential weakness in the Void Collective's biomechanical physiology. Their ships and bodies are interconnected through a complex neural network that relies on quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication. Azarian scientist Velex continued the explanation. "If we can disrupt this network with a precisely calibrated quantum pulse, we may be able to temporarily sever their hive mind connection. This would leave them disoriented and vulnerable to attack." Alina nodded. "Excellent work. Kai, what's the status on integrating this technology with our weapon systems?" Kay's face was grim but determined. "It's not perfect, Captain. We've only had a few days to adapt the Zarian quantum pulse technology to our systems. We can't be certain how effective it will be in actual combat." "It'll have to do," Alina replied. "What about our defensive capabilities?" A Zarian engineer named Lyra spoke up. "We successfully integrated your shield harmonics with our planetary defense grid. This should provide significantly improved protection against the Void Collective's energy weapons." As the briefing continued, detailing their battle strategies and contingency plans, Alina couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. In just a few short days, humans and Zarians had accomplished what would have taken years under normal circumstances. The looming threat had forged an alliance stronger than anyone could have imagined. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the command center. Kay's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, we're detecting a massive energy spike from the lead void collective ship. They're preparing to fire." Alina's mind raced. They weren't ready yet, but they were out of time. "All hands to battle stations. Raise shields and prepare to return fire. Today, we make our stand." As the combined human-Zarian forces scrambled to their positions, the sky above Nova Prime lit up with the eerie glow of Void Collective weapons fire. The battle for survival had begun. The first wave of the Void Collective's attack was relentless. Energy beams lanced down from the sky, slamming against the newly reinforced planetary shields. The very air seemed to crackle with power as the defensive grid strained under the assault. Aboard the UES Horizon, now integrated into the Zarian Defense Fleet, Captain Alina Rodriguez gripped the arms of her command chair. Status report. "Shields holding at 82%, Kay reported, his voice tense. "The Zarian improvements are working, but I don't know how long we can sustain this level of attack." Alina nodded grimly. "We don't need to hold forever. We just need to buy enough time for our counterattack. Weapons officer, target the lead ship with our quantum pulse disruptor. Fire when ready." A brilliant beam of energy shot forth from the horizon, striking the massive Void Collective vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, the enemy ship's movements became erratic, its weapons fire going wild. "It's working," Yuki exclaimed. "Their neural network is destabilizing. They're vulnerable." Alina allowed herself a small smile. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Let's show these cybernetic bastards what happens when they mess with our galaxy." The combined firepower of the human and Zarian fleet tore into the disoriented, Void Collective ship. Explosions blossomed across its hull, and within minutes, the massive vessel began to break apart. A cheer went up throughout the fleet, but Alina knew better than to celebrate too early. "Good work, people, but this battle's far from over. Prepare for their counterattack." As if on cue, the remaining Void Collective ships began to adapt their tactics. They spread out, making it harder to target them with a quantum pulse. Their weapons fire became more focused, concentrating on specific points in the defensive shield. "They're learning." Zara's voice came through the comm system, tight with worry. "Our advantage won't last long." Alina's mind raced, searching for a solution. "Kai, can we modify the quantum pulse to affect a wider area?" "Possibly," Kay replied, his fingers already flying over his console. "But it would significantly reduce its effectiveness. We'd need to get much closer to the enemy ships." "Then that's what we'll do," Alina decided. "Helm, plot an intercept course for the nearest cluster of enemy vessels. All power to forward shields." As the horizon dove into the heart of the enemy fleet, Alina opened a channel to the rest of their forces. "This is Captain Rodriguez. We're going to attempt to disrupt a larger portion of the Void Collective fleet. Be ready to capitalize on any openings we create. And it's been an honor serving with all of you." The horizon weaved through a barrage of enemy fire, its enhanced shields glowing bright under the assault. As they closed in on their target, Alina gave the order. "Fire quantum pulse, wide dispersal." A wave of energy erupted from the ship, washing over the nearby Void Collective vessels. The effect was immediate but less pronounced than before. The enemy ships stuttered in their movements, their coordination clearly disrupted. "Now," Alina shouted, all ships, concentrate fire. The battle became a chaotic melee as human ingenuity and Zarian technology clashed with the cold, ruthless efficiency of the Void Collective. Ships on both sides fell to the intense exchange of fire, but slowly, incrementally, the defenders began to gain the upper hand. Hours passed, feeling like an eternity to those engaged in the struggle. The once pristine space around Nova Prime became a graveyard of shattered ships and debris. But finally, mercifully, the tide began to turn decisively in favor of the defenders. As the last of the Void Collective ships were destroyed or driven off, a weary cheer rose up from the combined fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, they had repelled the invasion. Back in the war room on Nova Prime, Alina stood with Zara, both of them battered and exhausted but alive. The holographic display showed the remnants of the Void Collective fleet retreating from the system. "We did it," Zara said, her voice filled with awe. "You saved our world, Captain Rodriguez. How can we ever repay you?" Alina shook her head. "This victory belongs to all of us, Zara, human and Zarian alike. We stood together against a threat to all life in our galaxy, and we prevailed." As the two leaders watched the retreating enemy ships, a sobering thought occurred to Alina. But this isn't over, is it? The Void Collective will be back, and they'll have learned from this defeat. Zara's expression turned grave. "You're right. This was just the beginning. We've won the battle, but the war has only just begun." Alina nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Then we'll be ready for them. Together, we'll build a force capable of defending not just Nova Prime, but the entire galaxy if necessary." The Void Collective thought they could simply assimilate us. Instead, they created an alliance that will be their downfall. As the sun rose on Nova Prime, bathing the battered but unbroken world in its warm light, the seeds of a new interstellar alliance were sown. Humanity and the Zarians, once strangers separated by the vast gulfs of space, were now bound together by shared struggle and triumph. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but for now they allowed themselves to savor their hard-won victory. The Guardians of Nova Prime had faced their first great test, and they had emerged stronger than ever. Michael Jones and Aria moved swiftly through the maze-like corridors of the Grand Temple, their steps synchronized in perfect silence. Though the air was tense with the looming threat of capture, Aria's determination and Michael's tactical precision guided them deeper into the labyrinth. The temple was far more than an ancient structure. Its complexity mirrored the depth of the Vakari culture, a civilization both advanced and entrenched in tradition. As they made their way through a dimly lit passage, Aria gestured toward a hidden door. "This will lead us to the inner sanctum," she whispered, her voice steady. "But there's more to this than just rescuing me. My father, the Emperor, doesn't know about the rebellion within the clan. This isn't just a kidnapping. It's a coup." Michael raised an eyebrow but didn't pause. "And you decided not to mention this earlier because—" Aria shot him a glance. "Would you have agreed to help if you knew you were walking into the middle of a civil war?" He couldn't argue with that. The stakes had just risen, but so had the potential payoff. If Aria survived, not only would he have completed his mission, but he'd have a valuable ally in one of the most powerful factions in the galaxy. The thought of it stirred something within him, a mix of excitement and dread. He'd been in tough spots before, but nothing quite like this. They reached the hidden door, and Aria placed her hand on a panel, activating it. The door slid open, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft blue light. Inside, ancient Vakari texts lined the walls, and in the center stood a holographic map of the galaxy. Aria moved toward it, her fingers dancing over the controls. Michael stood guard by the entrance, his sharp eyes scanning the hallway for any signs of pursuit. "We don't have time for sightseeing," he muttered. "I'm not sightseeing," Arya replied, her voice calm but focused. "This is the key to our escape." She brought up a map of the temple and overlaid it with the city's layout. "There's a secret tunnel beneath the temple that leads to the outskirts of the capital. It's our only chance to get out undetected." Michael glanced over her shoulder at the map. "And how do you know this?" Arya smirked. "I wasn't always a helpless damsel. My father trained me to lead, and I made sure to know every detail about this place." "Impressive," Michael admitted, though his eyes remained on the corridor. "But we've got company." Footsteps echoed from down the hallway. The guards were closing in. "We need to move." "Now," he said, turning to Arya. She nodded, quickly memorizing the map before leading the way down a narrow staircase hidden behind a tapestry. As they descended, the walls became rougher, the temple's grandeur fading into what seemed like ancient tunnels, long forgotten by most. The air was damp, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows along the stone walls. For a moment, the tension eased, but Michael knew it wouldn't last. They were far from safe. The rival clan would soon realize Arya was gone, and it wouldn't take long for them to mobilize their forces. "So what's the plan once we're out of here?" Michael asked, his tone matter of fact. He wasn't the type to dwell on the past or the present. His mind was always on the next move. "We need to get to the Imperial Palace," Arya replied, her voice unwavering. "If I can speak to my father, I can expose the corruption within the rival clan and stop the coup before it spreads." Michael frowned. "And you think he'll listen to you?" "From what I've seen, the Vicari don't seem to have much love for rebellion." Arya's expression hardened. "My father isn't like the others. He values strength, not just in battle but in leadership. If I can prove the conspiracy to him, he'll act." Michael shrugged. "Fine, but we're going to need more than just a good argument to get there alive." They continued through the tunnels, the sound of water dripping echoing through the cavernous space. It was quiet, too quiet. Michael's instincts told him something was off, and those instincts rarely failed him. Just as he was about to voice his concern, Arya froze. Ahead of them, a group of Vicari soldiers stood blocking their path, their plasma rifles raised. Michael's hand instinctively went to his own weapon, but Arya stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Let me handle this," she whispered to him. Michael tensed but nodded. He didn't like the idea of letting Arya take the lead, but he also knew when to trust his allies. Arya addressed the leader of the group, her voice steady and commanding. "I am Arya, daughter of Emperor Thalas. Stand down. You are in violation of imperial law." The soldiers hesitated, exchanging glances. The leader, a grizzled Vicari with scarred scales, narrowed his eyes. "We serve Lord Thorn now, not the Emperor." Arya's jaw clenched. "Then you are traitors to the throne, and you will pay for your betrayal." The leader laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the tunnel. "You think your father can save you now? Lord Thorn will have the throne by sunrise, and you'll be just another casualty." Michael's grip tightened on his rifle. He'd heard enough. Without warning, he sprang into action, firing a shot that took down the nearest soldier. The others reacted too slowly, caught off guard by the sudden attack. Arya moved just as swiftly, grabbing a fallen soldier's weapon and joining the fray. Despite her regal upbringing, she handled herself with the skill of a seasoned warrior. Within moments, the soldiers were down, and the tunnel was silent once more. Michael wiped the sweat from his brow and glanced at Arya, impressed. "You're full of surprises." Arya gave him a small smile, though her eyes were still hard with determination. "I told you, I'm not just some princess." They pressed on, knowing that the clock was ticking. The rival clan would soon realize their men were missing, and the pursuit would intensify. As they neared the end of the tunnel, Michael could see the faint light of dawn filtering through the entrance. Freedom was within their grasp, but so was the reality of what lay ahead. The Imperial Palace was still miles away, and the city would be crawling with enemy forces by now. But Michael wasn't deterred. He thrived in impossible situations, and this was no different. As they emerged from the tunnel, he glanced at Arya. Ready for the real fight. Arya nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. Always. Together, they set off toward the capital, knowing that the fate of not just Uria's people, but possibly the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. The battle for the Valkyrie throne had just begun, and Michael Jones, the bloodthirsty human, was ready to see it through to the end. Arya continued their dash through the labyrinth of the Grand Temple. The echoes of shouts and pounding footsteps from the pursuing Vuxar guards reverberated through the stone walls. Michael knew they didn't have much time before the full force of the temple's defense would be upon them. His sharp eyes scanned the hallways, calculating their next move, while Arya kept pace, her calm demeanor belying the storm of danger around them. "I know a way out," Arya whispered as they rounded another corner. Her voice was steady, despite the chaos around them. "It's through the catacombs beneath the temple. Few know about it, but I studied these halls my whole life." Michael nodded, trusting her instincts. "Lead the way. I'll cover our backs." As Arya took the lead, they made their way deeper into the ancient structure. The glow of flickering torches dimmed as they descended further into the temple's lower levels. The air grew colder, thick with the weight of centuries-old secrets hidden in the shadows. Michael kept his plasma rifle at the ready, listening for any signs of pursuit. The tension in the air was palpable. Every step felt like it could be their last, and Michael's thoughts flickered to the weight of this mission. He'd taken on risky jobs before, but none like this. None that involved an empire, a potential war, or the fate of a young alien girl who was more than she appeared. Finally, they reached a large stone door covered in intricate carvings. Arya paused, pressing her hand against the stone, and whispered a few words in her native tongue. The door rumbled open, revealing a narrow passage that led further into darkness. "This is it," she said, glancing back at Michael. "Once we're through here, we'll be outside the city walls. We can make our escape." Michael nodded. "Let's go. I'll make sure no one follows." But just as they stepped inside, a loud clang echoed from behind them. The Vixar guards had caught up. Michael turned, his plasma rifle blazing in short, controlled bursts. The narrow hallway worked to his advantage, bottlenecking the guards as they rushed forward. But their numbers were overwhelming, and for every guard Michael took down, 2 more appeared. "Go," Michael shouted over the roar of his weapon. "I'll hold them off." Arya hesitated for a moment, her instincts telling her to stay and fight. But she knew she couldn't risk being captured again. She ran ahead, disappearing into the darkness as Michael laid down covering fire. The guards pressed harder, their alien weapons lighting up the corridor with deadly beams of energy. Michael could feel the heat of their shots as they grazed past him, the scent of burning metal filling the air. He gritted his teeth and fired back, refusing to give an inch. But then, from the corner of his eye, he saw something. A shadowy figure moving swiftly through the chaos. Before he could react, the figure lunged at him, knocking the rifle from his hands. Michael struggled, his marine instincts kicking in as he fought hand-to-hand with his attacker. It wasn't a guard, it was a priest. Their combat was brutal, every move precise and deadly. Michael's hand reached for his knife, and with a swift motion, he plunged it into the priest's side. The figure crumpled, and Michael retrieved his weapon, his heart pounding. He had no time to reflect on the close call. He turned and bolted down the passage, following Aria's path. He could hear the footsteps of the guards behind him, their pursuit relentless. But as he reached the end of the tunnel, the cool night air hit his face. He emerged outside the city walls, and to his relief, Aria was waiting for him with a small shuttle. "Come on," she shouted, already in the pilot's seat, the engine humming to life. Michael leaped into the co-pilot's seat, and they shot into the sky, leaving the temple and the city behind. As the capital of Vox Prime shrank in the distance, Michael allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But he knew the danger was far from over. "We did it," Aria said, her voice filled with both exhaustion and triumph. "But they'll be coming after us. The entire Empire will be hunting us now." Michael glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Then we'll have to make sure they never catch us." As the stars streaked past, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that their fight had only just begun. The small shuttle rocketed through the atmosphere of Vox Prime, heading for the far reaches of the planet's orbit. Michael sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching Aria skillfully maneuver the craft. Despite the danger they were in, he could sense her confidence. The daughter of an emperor, yes, but more than that. Aria was a fighter, just like him. "Where are we headed?" Michael asked, his voice steady despite the tense situation. "There's an outpost hidden deep in the jungle, on the far side of the planet," Aria replied, her focus on the controls. "It's a secret base where my allies have been gathering evidence of the corruption within the Empire. We'll be safe there for now, but we'll need to move quickly." Michael nodded, formulating a plan in his mind. "Once we regroup, we'll need to figure out our next steps. The Vixar Empire isn't going to let you just walk away. They'll send their best to hunt us down." Aria glanced at him, a spark of determination in her eyes. "Let them come. They underestimated me once. They won't do it again." As the shuttle streaked through the atmosphere, Michael's thoughts turned to the bigger picture. The Vixar Empire was vast, with allies spread across the galaxy. If Aria's enemies were as powerful as they seemed, they wouldn't stop until they reclaimed their prize. And if the Empire fell into the hands of the rival clan, it could destabilize the entire region. They needed more than just a hiding place. They needed allies. "Do you have any contacts outside of the Empire?" Michael asked. "We're going to need more than just a few rebels if we're going to take on an entire government." Aria's fingers danced across the controls, her expression thoughtful. "There are a few who might help us, but they're far from here. We'll need to find a way to reach them without drawing attention." Michael leaned back in his seat, his mind racing. "I know some people. Mercenaries, smugglers, folks who operate in the shadows. They owe me a few favors. It won't be easy, but we can reach out to them. With the right plan, we might be able to turn the tide." Aria smiled faintly. "It seems I chose the right human for this job." Aria smiled faintly. "It seems I chose the right human for this job." Before Michael could respond, the shuttle sensors beeped loudly. His eyes flicked to the screen, and his stomach tightened. A squadron of Vixar ships had appeared on the radar, closing in fast. "We've got company," Michael said grimly. Aria's expression hardened. "Strap in. This is going to get rough." The shuttle dove through the clouds, Aria deftly avoiding the incoming fire from the Vixar ships. Michael gripped the console, bracing himself as they weaved through the dense jungle canopy. Plasma blasts lit up the night, scorching the treetops as the enemy ships tried to close the gap. Michael's mind raced. They needed to lose their pursuers, but in this terrain there was little room for error. One wrong move, and they'd be vaporized. He glanced at Aria, who was completely focused on the task at hand. "We can't outrun them," Michael said. We need to outsmart them. Arya nodded. I've got an idea. With a sudden burst of speed, she guided the shuttle into a narrow ravine, the walls of the canyon rising sharply on either side. The Vixar ships followed, but their larger size made it harder for them to maneuver in such tight quarters. Hold on, Arya shouted, pulling the shuttle into a steep climb. They shot upward, barely clearing the top of the canyon. The Vixar ships weren't so lucky. Two of them slammed into the canyon walls, erupting into flames. Michael grinned. Nice flying. Arya smirked. I told you, I'm not just any Vosar. As they broke free of the canyon, Michael saw the outline of the hidden outpost in the distance. It was well camouflaged, blending into the jungle, but Michael's sharp eyes picked out the signs of life: guards, weapons, and the unmistakable glow of power generators. We made it, Arya said, relief evident in her voice. But Michael's gut told him this was only the beginning of a much larger battle.